What's up, guys? This is Hyro from the Grind Fitness Training Systems, and today we're going to talk about why your hips and thoracic spine dictate, this is an important word here, dictate your power and control in combat sports. So what I try to do with these videos is kind of teach you concepts so that you can create your own style of programming, so that you can incorporate strength and conditioning regimens that are built for combat sports. So one of the reasons why we talk about this is because people have a tendency to confuse uh, power and control with like just raw strength, and they're totally different. So the first thing you need to understand that all leverage in the body comes from the hips and the thoracic spine working in conjunction. So you got to think of it like a vehicle, like an actual like car. The hips are the engine, and the thoracic spine is the transmission. They work together to generate output or force output of the body, especially when it comes to combat sports, because that's like the raw nature of what we are as humans. Um, so one of the things that most of us don't focus on is, which is why I'm so big on the mobility thing, because most of us, including myself, when I first started this journey of combat sports, I was very stiff. It's normal. It's just how we grow as humans. Unfortunately, with the technology, we're not as active as we should be. But any type of stiffness when it comes to the hips and or thoracic spine, to be honest with you, with almost any joint in your body, you're basically losing power. So you're leaking power just because you're stiff. So the lack of flexibility and or mobility, really, what you want to work on, which I have a bunch of other videos on that kind of stuff, is if you're crappy here, you're just losing power that's going to benefit your actual sport. So when you're training, you got to have that in mindset. Like, how can I minimize the the power leakage as I move? Um, so again, the hips are the engine of the body, and the thoracic part, or the thoracic spine, I here put the missing link. The reason why I put the missing link here is because what it does is it connects the power of the lower body, which is where everything comes from, to the upper body. So in conjunction is how they work as you as a human. So when you're training, when you're actually working out, what you're trying to do is you're trying to control rotational strength. Okay. And that comes in many different formats. So when you're actually doing the sport, whether you're grappling, whether you're striking, you're doing basically very omnidirectional. It's coming all different directions. And what you want to try to do is try to increase the power through rotation, but it has to be under controlled settings. So the first one is CARS. CARS stands for controlled articular rotations. I have a whole section called pre-rehab. It's a playlist. Within that playlist, you'll see CARS, and you'll see some other kind of end range kind of concepts you'll understand. And that, again, it goes back to the mobility stuff that I kind of push kind of heavy. And then when you're actually lifting, you're doing rotational lifts. So landmine rotations, kettlebell halos, med ball throws, where you're using the power of the hips in conjunction with the mobility of the thoracic spine. So you're learning how to connect the power of the hips to the upper body, which will translate to your combat sport. Okay, but some of us are doing that, but most of us are not. Most of us that do this, we fall into the trap of like bodybuilding workouts, which is, again, it's not bad, but why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You're just building muscle just to build muscle. You want to work out because, again, the main objective of all this is your combat sport. So when you're going into the gym and taking care of yourself, you want to do productive lifts that is going to amplify the combat sport that you do. Most of us don't do these bottom two. Okay, this is something that I've learned over time, and I now understand the value of it, especially now that I'm getting a little bit older as well. The first one is end range isometrics, and what that does is teaching the body and the musculature, that connective tissue between the tendon and the muscle itself, gets thicker, so you get sturdier at the bone level, which makes you a little bit more injury proof, like injury less proof, or however you want to word it. You're less likely to get injured, which all of us are going to get injured if you do a combat sport, but you want to reduce the likelihood of it actually happening. And then the last one is breathing and bracing under load to stabilize the spine. So those are things like one-arm racks, with a kettlebell, like a heavy one-arm rack with a kettlebell, marching, that type of idea. Farmer's carry on one side, things of that nature, where you're learning how to like brace the spine and be able to breathe under load. And the more you're going to be able to do that, you're going to learn how to do like expansive breathing, which again will translate over to when you're tired, when you're grappling, when your legs are out of gas and your upper body's out of gas, and you got to brace yourself because someone is attacking you. Those are all things that are translate over to your combat sport. So again, the whole objective of everything that I just went through is for this particular thing. When you train, you want to train to control rotation. So you're not working on just rotation where you're working on the flexibility. You're learning to control that rotation under tension. Tension also means load, and that's a bunch of different ways: barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell, body weight. Actually doing your actual combat sport, but you want to do it in a controlled setting, which is why this is how you want to kind of program your lifts when you hit the gym. All right, guys, hope that helped.